Not Quite Grown Up by Sharon. On my return visits to my hometown in Northern Ontario, I realize it's a place almost frozen in time, and when I'm there, I have the distinct feeling of being instantly transported back to the 60s. At the time I moved away, I was eager to leave. Unfortunately, I didn't realize what I was giving up. Espanola is surrounded by an abundance of trees and clear lakes. Summer wasn't so intense that it left sweat on our brows, only warmth on our shoulders. Fall came quickly with a burst of colorful leaves floating to the ground that were piled high by little children. Winter was bitter cold, but with lots of soft white snow for skiing and sledding. When spring eased in, defrosting our toes, well, all was right with the world. In the summer of 1965, at the age of 13, I had the opportunity for an adult experience that had remained in my memory ever since. It was before my father's early death and after the assassination of President Kennedy. My older sister and her city proper friend and I stayed overnight at her uncle's cottage on a little rocky island on Lake Apsey. It was the very definition of seclusion. As we stepped into the motor boat that weighed heavy with Susan's suitcase, I was mesmerized by the green, glass, clear water and the smooth rocks that lay on the bottom of the lake. Lake Apsey was pristine, but a cold lake, and for that reason not the best for swimming. Susan wasn't my first choice for an overnight companion, but I admired her red hair. I wanted red hair. In fact, I'd have welcomed anything that set me apart from the crowd. Plus, we didn't see much of it in Espanola. Susan was clothes-obsessed, and I puzzled over why she bought so many outfits with no one to appreciate her fashion looks. My sister and I cared little for it, especially on an island with only 3 of us. In fact, I would have been jealous of her if I hadn't been so preoccupied with the whole idea of total freedom. Dolores tugged hard on the motor's pull cord until it let out a loud roar. Then we breathed in the gasoline fumes that circled our heads and in a strange way seemed to add to our excitement. She steered the handle to back us away from the wooden dock. The air was warm and breezy. The scent of fir, maple, and spruce trees mingled with the smell of fish gave a scent that one can only find in Northern Ontario. The boat sped away while the dock grew distant. The wind blew our hair straight back. My heart pounded with anticipation and with no thought of danger for the afternoon and night to come. 20 minutes later, we arrived at our destination and tied the boat to a slippery, wet post sticking up from the water. The cottage was up an incline with a well-worn path leading right to the door. The island was covered with moss, grass, weeds, and peppered with winter trees. I thought the place would be rustic, but it was more house-looking than cottage, with white painted siding and a wooden screen door that led into a large, cozy kitchen. There was a pump in the sink and weathered wooden table and chairs. We only had cold water unless we warmed it on the wood stove or propane burners, and no inside toilet. There were gas lamps for light. Each of the 3 bedrooms had 2 double beds. I was pleasantly surprised by how roomy, fresh, and comfortable the place felt. Susan and I decided to go fishing from off the boat, and staring into the deep water, I could see many big, good-sized fish swimming all around us, toying with our lack of skill. We didn't catch a single one. It was going to be a canned supper, but that didn't bother us Because food didn't hold a high priority, what mattered was this moment in time when we were just like adults, doing our thing as we chose to do it. It was a glimpse into our future. When the night began to descend, I was surprised to find myself growing anxious. My sister was quieter than I'd wished her to be. I thought she'd take on a role of authority, but she didn't. In fact, she went to bed and left Susan and I to ourselves. Suddenly, I found myself feeling scared from all the unfamiliar sounds outside the cabin. Susan thought we needed to do our normal nighttime routine and that would help us settle down, but I was becoming intensely aware that we were alone, and the night on that island wasn't just dark, it was pitch black. I could hear owls, the wind whistling through the trees, and the shrill sounds of the crickets. My imagination went into high gear, and I pictured a black bear circling the cabin looking for a way to get in. Black bears are native to northern Ontario and good swimmers, so it was entirely possible for them to navigate between the many islands on the lake. I could see the dotted lights of far-off cottages, but they would have been little help if an emergency arose. We lit the lamps to scare off the shadows, but regardless, neither of us wanted to go into the dark bedrooms that now took on a gloomy appearance, so we each chose a comfy old sofa and settled in the living room. Sleep didn't come easily, not for me, so I chatted insistently about any silly thing just to keep my drowsy partner awake. Around 1 a.m., I heard some unsettling sounds outside the kitchen door and immediately began to question Susan. "Do you hear that?" I said with some urgency. "Do bears come on the island? You've been here before, do you know?" "Why, are you scared, baby?" she responded drowsily. "No, I'm not, but I hear something outside." I'm sure I did." "Could be the wind or could be a bear," she answered back, adding some tension to her voice. "Maybe we better wake my sister," I said, sounding like a timid little child. I stood up and headed toward her room. "I don't think she can save us from a bear," Susan said in a teasing voice. "Be really quiet, and if it doesn't hear anything, it will go away." "So you think it might be a bear?" I said, feeling seriously scared. "Could be. Do you think it smells food, or maybe it smells us?" "Yeah, they've got a great sense of smell, but if it tries to get in, we'll barricade ourselves in one of the bedrooms." "Oh, God, now you're saying it could get in." Suddenly Susan sat up straight with a deadly serious look on her face. "In fact, one time we had a big problem with a mother bear and her cubs. They were eating blueberries just outside the door, and nothing would scare them off. I was sure they'd attack if we stepped outside." "You're kidding, right?" I was startled at her convincing words and downright terrified at the thought of being mauled by a big black mother bear. But just as I was about to run from my sister, she burst into laughter. "Sorry, I'm teasing. It's a raccoon. We always have trouble with raccoons, not bears." I wasn't sure I could trust her anymore, so I stayed on sharp alert all night while she slept, and apparently peacefully. It was almost dawn before I nodded off, and in hearing my sister stir, I realized I was going to greet the day very tired. I thought one night would be enough of a grown-up experience, but I learned I wasn't ready for more than that. Sleeping in my own bed with the familiar sound of car doors slamming and dogs barking was a welcoming thought. I miss the north, maybe not the long, bitter winters, but I do miss all the greens and the smell of clean northern air. I miss the slow pace of a small town that allows you to stop and ponder. I also miss the simplicity, quaintness, and the experience of walking for only 10 minutes and being in the bush with no one around. The memories I have of my hometown and the overnight stay at that cottage I hold dear, and I wish I could live them over again. But I'm far away from my roots, and all I have are my memories. Whether those times were truly better or just better in my imagination is difficult to say. I continue to look back and sadly realize how quickly time has gone by. Although my memories will never abandon me, they are a trusted companion that comforts me when times are tough and the future seems a frightening place.